Welcome to the second episode of the Disability Perspective, brought to you by With Media, caption and description courtesy of Audio Eyes. I'm your host, Patrick Lynott. Before we begin, all of us at With Media would like to thank you for tuning in last month to the premiere of the Disability Perspective. By producing and publishing content by, for, and with people with disabilities, our mission is to create a more inclusive society for all people. In this episode, we'll dive into the arena of adaptive athletics, travel inequities for commuters in New York City, and follow up with an old friend. But first, our lead story. Tonight, we bring you exclusive interviews with disability rights advocates from the state of Connecticut, who will be discussing their efforts to defend rights of Connecticut residents with disabilities against discriminatory COVID-19 policies.
Deirdre Gifford, our amazing head of public health, is putting in place the structure we need to be able to get those vaccines out to people as needed, starting with the most vulnerable in nursing homes, our first line responders. And we're not going to do it until we know it's safe and effective.
People were shocked, and the people in the disability community throughout Connecticut contacted us from all over Connecticut. We were inundated with calls and emails from people who were very, very upset and said that, they were dismayed to learn that the governor had decided to do that and that they needed vaccines, and all kinds of different issues were coming up that people were, the hardships that people were experiencing because of their disabilities and not being able to get the vaccine sooner really posed some very serious hardships.
The governor went ahead and changed our policy in the state about getting the vaccination. And, as a number of legislators and others have said, I thought we were trying to get to the Black and brown community, the Asian community, the indigenous community. And what we're doing is simply getting to the white community again by changing the policy in the way in which we're changing it.
The state has pretty much left it up to the local towns and cities to make those arrangements. And every city and every town is different. And so there's not consistency.
But, a lot of people don't want to rock the boat and they don't want to complain. And they're going to say, well, the next time I won't get any help if I complain this time. And that is absolutely wrong, because there are state and federal laws which mandate that they help you. So we just got to keep the word going out there. We filed a supplemental complaint as well regarding the individuals who, weren't getting the vaccinations. I had one gentleman who, his appointment to get the vaccination was on whatever morning, and the day before is when the governor changed the law, and he was out of, he wasn't going to get vaccinated for quite a while. So again, I think, the federal government and the news and the media outlets were all saying this is when this is going to happen. Everyone's tuned up to do it, and then the governor changed it.
Some people who needed some sort of medical care, sometimes including surgery or dental care that they needed, they couldn't have that. They couldn't have get the the care they needed, like the surgeries that they needed, because they hadn't gotten the vaccination. So some people had their surgeries delayed because of that. So that is obviously a really serious problem, and why getting the vaccine was so urgent. And the reason that they had to have their surgeries put off or other medical treatments and dental treatment was because without the vaccine, it wasn't safe for them to go to the hospital to get the surgery, or to go even into their medical provider to get, a dental procedure or some other outpatient medical procedures.
Up next, we'll take a look at the hardships para-athletes face right after these messages. Don't go away.
I am a fan of Hertz. I love to rent from Hertz. I have rented with Hertz all over the country. From the moment I land, I can independently, with my tennis chair, operate, get on the bus, where the bus driver sees me, gets out, the bus is lowered, he knows how to work the ramp, there is a complete non-issue in terms of education. There is an absolute respect for my proprietorship, where it is just easy. It is equal access. And I really enjoy that. I appreciate that. But I am willing to pay that money for my ease of access.
I was born with spina bifida, a pretty common birth defect. I was given up for adoption as a baby, and so for me, I was adopted by a family with a lot of individuals with different disabilities, and so it gave me a great sense of perspective and really humbled me as to, what a real struggle is. We're doing something that is tremendously important. We're helping install the tools in these individuals to be successful beyond the basketball court. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of this?
Well, they helped me train to make my first basket, which I haven't yet, but I will. I will.
Welcome back to the Disability Perspective. For our next story, we turn to Arizona, where Haley Zymek is meeting with members of the para-athlete community. Haley.
With over 4,000 Paralympic and 5 million Special Olympic athletes worldwide, athletes with disabilities are still pushing for access and acceptance. Rhonda Carlson, Executive Director of Arizona Disabled Sports, says that transportation to competitions and facility rentals are the biggest challenges.
For someone with a disability, transportation's at times the biggest obstacle that they face in even getting to those opportunities. So really it's a lack of access, sometimes lack of transportation. Our highest costs are really going to be those facility rental fees and getting equipment out in the space, and obviously our coaches and other staff resources to facilitate those opportunities.
Joanne Serto, a longtime volunteer for the Special Olympics, agrees that facility costs and moving equipment can be a major struggle.
The expense was a huge barrier. It's not only the wheelchair sports, but they did track and field, and who had the equipment, how do you get the equipment there? It's not easy to carry your equipment, propel your chair, and get wherever you want to get to. For any of the sports in any of the leagues, not just Special Olympics, it's difficult. And the equipment, and like look at some of the track and field. If somebody wants to do a high jump, I mean, you just don't go to a track and find a high jump to find the mats or the bars or anything.
Rhonda Carlson also hopes for communities to get more involved and support the hard work of their local athletes.
Oftentimes people have to use that caveat of, oh, they're an athlete with a disability, and not just call them an athlete, because they really are, in my opinion, having to put in a lot more work in getting to where they are because of the challenges or impairments that they face. They don't often get the respect that maybe another professional or amateur athlete might get that doesn't have a disability. So I'm hopeful, particularly with this year in Tokyo coming up in the summer, and NBC had announced like 1,200 hours of coverage of the Paralympic Games. I'm hoping that that's a trend that continues, where people get to know these adaptive sports going on and the athletes behind them, and start supporting those athletes as well, because they're really putting in the same amount of hours. Paralympic athletes are training with the Olympic athletes. They're doing the same kind of regimens. So just to give them the support would really be appreciated.
Both women stress that getting more volunteers and community partnerships can help resolve discrimination against these athletes. For more information about adaptive sports and community activities from these disability advocates, you can visit ArizonaDisabledSports.com and LFDSI.org.
Thanks, Haley. Last episode, With Media featured a story on the Ryan Martin Foundation. Today, we'll hear from Hennessy Hernandez, a former camper who participated in the foundation's wheelchair basketball program. Now, Hennessy is a rising sophomore in college, pursuing a career in creative writing. Hennessy reflects on her time with the foundation and the impact Ryan Martin has had on her. Let's hear what she has to say.
To people who don't really know who I am and they're just making that first snap judgment of like, oh, she must be really sad with her life, I would say don't think that way. Personally, I've been living this way since I was 1.5. So I have no other experience like knowing what it's like to walk, or knowing how it's like to be able-bodied or whatever, or normal to your standards. But this is my normal, and I learned to be happy the way I am. My name's Hennessy Hernandez. I've been playing basketball since 2013. I stopped recently in college, but I'm now a creative writing and history major. I think definitely having a lot of people growing up like me definitely helped me feel comfortable in my own body and my own disability, just because I saw people every day comfortable with their own body. Like Ryan, my coach, he does all this cool stuff. He's like a teacher over there in Spain speaking Spanish, and he like plays basketball professionally. And I have a whole bunch of other coaches that do sports and like coaching for a living, and it's kind of inspiring to me. Like I didn't need to get up to their level. I never needed to go to the Paralympics, but I knew that I could do something with my life, and I could be successful. Being on a wheelchair basketball team really influenced the way I think about myself, like with a disability now. Like it kind of empowered me, because I don't really see myself as someone that needs to be cured of anything. I see myself as someone who could like do anything that they put their mind to, and just like get over any sort of obstacle, since I've gotten through a lot already. So I think it sort of gave me a lot of independence as well, and it made me very independent and made me very outspoken and basically part of a team, like a team player to it.
To learn more about Hennessy's story, visit the With Media blog at with-media.org, where she shares her experiences as a college student and young adult with a disability. At the end of June, the Gaylord Hospital in Wallingford, Connecticut held their annual Gaylord Gauntlet, an athletic fundraising event for the Gaylord Sports Association, which provides adaptive sports for people with disabilities and wounded veterans. Here now is a look at the 2021 Gaylord Gauntlet.
Hello, I'm Ryan Berg, and today I'm at Wallingford, Connecticut at the Gaylord Hospital's campus, where they are hosting the Gaylord Gauntlet. The Gaylord Gauntlet includes 500 runners participating in a 5K and obstacle course to help raise funds for the Gaylord Sports Association for adaptive athletes. We talked today with some of the various athletes and teams to what it means to make it possible for this. The Gaylord Gauntlet brings people together all around to raise money to support their sports association teams and programs they host. But it's also to hear even better stories. We sat down with Chris Scranton, who's an adaptive athlete who's been involved in Gaylord events for about 5 years and counting, what this event means to him and his team.
Attention to the accident that got me into this position, which was a motorcycle accident. So I'm able to bring some light onto that, and also to give back to Gaylord, which is an awesome rehab facility, and without them, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
We asked Jod Redfield, who's an adaptive athlete as well, who's heavily involved with Gaylord's events throughout the years, a similar question. He runs for Team Hanger Clinic, a company which makes his prosthetics as well as for others, about how much this event impacts the disability community.
I just like this whole, the whole concept of the Gaylord Gauntlet, especially with people with disabilities, because it gives you a way to get outside and tackle obstacles that you wouldn't normally do. Not many people with prosthetics, run, let alone climb walls or climb in the mud or, any other crazy obstacles that we have.
The Gaylord Hospital has helped so many people over the years, as well as creating these sporting events and programs for their patients who are interested. The Gauntlet is where people can give back to the hospital and what they've done to so many others. It brings people out each year to challenge and push themselves, as well as to continue the hospital's sports programs and events like these for adaptive athletes everywhere.
For more information on how you can help Gaylord Hospital reach their fundraising goal, visit runsignup.com. After the break, we'll hear from veteran New Yorker and Vice President of Content Development at With Media, Sam Tavares, for insight into the city's public transportation system. How truly accessible is the greatest city in the world? Find out after this.
With Media invites you to celebrate Disability Pride Month this July. What is Disability Pride Month? According to America's disability community, the month honors this natural and beautiful part of human diversity. Since the Americans with Disabilities Act passed in 1990, achievements have been made in the disability community, and we are continuing to strive for accessibility and acceptance. With Media is proud to uplift people with disabilities and invites everyone to celebrate with us. Happy Disability Pride Month!
My name is Carlos Quiles, and I live in Meriden, Connecticut. For me, when I fly, I usually try to fly Southwest if I can. There's no assigned seating, so everybody's first class. So you can just get on, pick out the seats that you want, and sit there. Especially when I'm traveling with my basketball team, we can all sit together and not have two guys in the front, two guys in the back, one guy in the middle all by himself. For me, it's something like Enterprise, they're a big brand that everybody knows about, but they've been really great to me when it comes to adapting the vehicles and having them ready for when I need them. Any companies that are disability friendly, they're my friend too. So.
Public transportation has become a key form of transportation for society. It allows us to move freely and easily from one area to another without owning a vehicle, and it also allows us to save money on expenses such as gas and auto repairs. For me personally, it helps me get from one destination to another in New York City at an expedited rate. But every once in a while, I face issues such as this one. And believe me, I am not the only disabled individual who has. According to the American Public Transportation Association, Americans took 9.9 billion trips on public transportation in 2019. However, 45% of Americans don't even have access to public transportation. Now, accessibility has been a big problem for people with disabilities when it comes to public transportation. Take New York City, the largest mass transit city in the world, for example. It has a huge accessibility problem within its subway system. In fact, according to the website Gothamist.com, as of 2020, 25% of the 472 subway stations owned and operated by the MTA are accessible, which is roughly a total of 135 stations. Now, the MTA has made a commitment to have all those stations accessible by the year 2034. But most disabled New Yorkers, as well as non-disabled New Yorkers, say That's not acceptable. Now, since the establishment of the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990, there have been many changes that have impacted the lives of people with disabilities in a positive manner. However, at the same time, there have been many changes that have not. Look, the fact that it's taking public transportation organizations like the MTA so many years to upgrade their public transportation system is absolutely shameful, and it needs to change. Accessibility should not be a problem for people with disabilities in the year 2021. The fact that over 30 years have gone by since the ADA was passed and nothing has changed in terms of accessibility within public transportation is troubling, and it needs to be rectified. Like everyone else in this country, people with disabilities are taxpayers, and their tax dollars are being spent on stuff that, well, let's be honest, when you come to think of it, really aren't all that necessary. Why don't we start using taxpayer money to fix our infrastructure? Why don't we start using taxpayer money to create a more accessible country for all people? These are questions that must be answered. And these are things that, when you come to think of it, need to start happening soon. The truth is this: a more disabled-friendly society is a happier society. And it opens the door for people with disabilities of all types. Let's be that change. Let's create that change. Let's do it for us. Let's do it for the next generation. Most importantly, let's do it for America, because it desperately needs it.
That wraps up our show. From all of us at With Media, we thank you for tuning in. And remember,